Okay, everybody, radio stations across the country here at the Bitcoin.com studio. There is a lot happening right now. In breaking news, USS Nimitz headed to the Middle East ahead of schedule. Will the United States get involved? That is an open question. But first, we have with us a great man from Oklahoma, Senator Markwayne Mullin, who is the liaison between the House and the Senate for the big, beautiful bill. We're also going to ask about Israel and Iran as well. Senator, great to see you.
Hey, Charlie, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. First, on the Iranian news, what is your analysis of what is happening, what is going on, Iranian nuclear program, and what is your thoughts on how Israel's been handling and brokering this war?
Well, I think it's interesting. First of all, let's take on the president's posture here. I want you to understand what you brought up, Nimitz repositioning. The president's posture here is the one word we need to take away is deterrence. The president is trying to prevent an all-out war by deterrence, peace through strength, which I think is very important here. As far as Israel, I think Israel is doing everybody in that entire region. I don't care if you're Egypt or you're Qatar or your Kuwait, Iraq, UAE, Saudi Arabia. I don't care who you are. If you're in that region, you do not want the Iranians to have a nuclear weapon because they will kick off a nuclear war if they have it. So Israel's doing them a favor by taking the fight to them, and I think they're doing a great job. And it's systematically too, right? So you think about it, that the Iranians have not really committed troops for quite some time, and the last time they did was in Iraq, and it ended horribly for them. So they fight proxy wars, and they fight proxy wars with Hamas, Houthis, and Hezbollah. And over the last year and a half, I mean, literally Israel has decimated every one of them. And then they took out their air defense, which Israel now controls the air defense over Iran, showing that they were just simply loudmouths, not able to back up anything. People worried about a full-scale war. It'd be nearly impossible for the Iranian regime to actually be able to put troops into Israel. Now, they can fight a covert war, which they are. They're shooting missiles, which they are. I believe that you're going to see a lot more terrorist-style activity happening in Israel, God forbid. But what President Trump has done here is he's positioning assets by warning Iran, because there has been some credible information that they would like to hit the United States because they feel like that we are supporting Israel, which we are. But at the same time, they don't want to draw us into the fight. And what we're doing is we're positioning ourselves so they don't draw us in a fight. So I think Trump is handling this. President Trump is handling this very well, and Israelis are doing the Lord's work here by literally kicking the snake's head into the dirt.
And so what do you have to say for some people, and I share some of this concern, that we do not want regime change? Is there something short of regime change, of getting rid of the nuclear program and not potentially destabilizing the country, that could result in a civil war? I'm basically asking, in your estimation, Senator, what do you think victory looks like?
We are absolutely not talking about regime change. The president hasn't talked about it. We are not. This is not Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State having the Arab Spring. That is not what we're trying to do here. President Trump has made it extremely clear that he would love to have diplomatic relationships. He's even talked about trade with Iran. However, they will never be able to have a nuclear weapon. So what victory looks like is their inability to ever have a nuclear weapon, or inability, that we never want them to have a nuclear weapon. So when we can knock out their infrastructure and prevent that from ever happening, that is victory. And this is what prevents a forever war, by the way. When you don't know what victory looks like, if you can't define victory, that's how you have a forever war. So I'd go back and use the argument in Afghanistan. After we took out Osama bin Laden, we should have left. We shouldn't have dragged that on. And I think a lot of guys that fought there would feel the same. So if you can define victory before it starts, which that's what President Trump has said, we will never allow you to have a nuclear weapon, ever, full stop. We knock out their infrastructure, we're done. As far as regime change, that's not on us. That's on the people of Iran to figure out what they want to do themselves. That's not our fault, our fight, or our problem.
Yeah, and look, J.D. Vance made a really important point. President Trump has been remarkably consistent about Iran not having a nuclear weapon.
Right.
10 years ago yesterday, Senator Mullin, President Trump, businessman Trump, came down the escalator, and a little buried nugget in his speech was, I will stop Iran from getting nuclear weapons. This was 10 years ago. He talked about the border. He talked about an invasion. He talked about trade. He talked about how we don't win anymore. But let's play cut 303. The consistency 10 years later, it's really something. Play cut 303.
I will stop Iran from getting nuclear weapons, and we won't be using a man like Secretary Kerry that has absolutely no concept of negotiation, who's making a horrible and laughable deal, who's just being tapped along as they make weapons right now.
Senator, that was 10 years ago. This is a through line of the MAGA movement. Thoughts?
Well, I think you said it right, Charlie. President Trump has been very consistent. He has made it very clear, we will not allow you to have a nuclear weapon. Full stop. And that's what this fight is all about. Unfortunately, the Biden administration did not keep the Trump administration policies in place on anything, which is why you had a disastrous withdrawal out of Afghanistan. We had disastrous foreign policies all over the country. That's why the Ukraine war started. That's why we had destabilization around the world and aggressive China because they got away from it. But you also had an aggressive Iran who aggressively sought a nuclear weapon. President Trump, by the time he got in, unfortunately, diplomacy wasn't working. President Trump said in April that they have 60 days. They have 60 days, and I think it was April 12th, that they had 60 days to negotiate doing away with their nuclear program. And by the way, at midnight on the 60th day, going into the 61st day, is when the airstrikes from Israel started. So he doesn't bluff. Once he puts a red line out, he makes that red line very clear and decisive, and he backs it up.
And so, Senator, and for people that I represent in my generation, and I share a lot of this, we're very weary of long quagmires, Iraq war. But President Trump has a different philosophy here. He wants violent, precise action. He wants to he does not allow a publicly stated line to not have fulfillment. And what is the profundity and the significance of that? 1 minute remaining, Senator, when it comes to foreign policy?
People know where he stands. It's clarity. He's made his point clear in his position, and he's backing it up by repositioning our assets by deterrence. He is not wanting to fight a war, but he is showing that he's prepared to fight if he must. But he's at the same time, he's been through this whole bombing campaign too. He's been saying, I wish Iran would have came to the table. I wish they would talk. We're still willing to talk, but you're going to have to come to our terms. We're not negotiating on your terms. He has been consistent through this entire situation, and that hasn't changed. When world leaders know that they can trust what you say, and you're also backing it up with Reagan foreign policy, peace through strength, it gets people's attention. And there is nobody better than this. And by the way, there's nobody that wants peace more than President Trump as well. And you can achieve both by showing strength and having straight talk.
Senator, stay right there. Thank you. We have another segment with you. What do we have, guys? ReliefFactor.com. Living with everyday aches and pains is like having a voice that constantly says no. Pain is affecting you. If pain is affecting you, see how Relief Factor can help you get back to living your life, whether it's ill. What should our audience know about these negotiations?
Well, they're fluid. And the president is very, very involved in this, Charlie. What we don't want to do is get in the ping pong back and forth where the House sends, where we send this back to the House amends it, sends it back to us, and we end up going into to conference, and that would take weeks, if not months, to negotiate. What we're trying to do is work all the problems out now, like with SALT, with the debt limit, with Medicare and Medicaid. When we start talking about some debt limit increase, That is a very sticky subject for some because there's a lot of people in both chambers that doesn't want to put debt limit increase in this, but understand that if we don't do this, this is a leverage point for the Democrats because we will have to raise our debt limit. If we don't raise our debt limit, then we default. And this is what I said on multiple places, not raising our debt limit is like not getting a business loan when you're buying a felon business. You can have a business plan to make it profitable, but it doesn't mean you're going to make it profitable the first day. That's why you have a business loan. I feel like if we follow Trump's economic plan, we raise the debt limit now, there's a good chance that we can balance a budget in 3 years. And this might get us to 3 years, depending on how much growth we have. $4.5 trillion, huge debt increase. I get that, but we have to do it to get out of this problem. As President Trump said, he didn't create this problem, he inherited it. It's on us to fix it, and we've got to try fixing it. And this bill moves us that way. But I think probably the two sticky points is the debt limit increase. Well, three: debt limit increase, deficit reduction, and SALT. And SALT could be the poison pill here if we don't get it right.
And so, we can't allow a poison pill. Right. Senator, you're from Oklahoma. Oklahoma's well run. Governor Stitt is great. You know that I visited Oklahoma State University. You guys, I think, balance your budget or get close to it, an approximation of it. You know, you guys have a great tax policy. I don't understand. What is the argument from Republicans for SALT other than they want to bring goodies home? They are subsidizing J.B. Pritzker and Gavin Newsom and Kathy Hochul. I know you got to be the negotiator. I know you got to try to make a deal happen on SALT, but I got to be honest, it is a penalty for well-run red states.
Sure. So first of all, every state in the union is supposed to pass a balanced budget. They're not allowed to carry debt. United States, that's why I say if we would actually bring back line item appropriations where we had to appropriate every single dollar instead of bundling dollars like states do, we could actually probably balance our budget, because what DOJ is doing is just exactly what states do every day, is they line item every single penny that is spent. Since we don't, we bundle, you have wasteful spending that DOJ is exposing. So get back to SALT. Here's the problem with this: is we have a very slim majority in the House. Obviously, we do in the Senate too. And there's 5 representatives that this is their big issue, and without their support, this bill doesn't pass.
No, I get that. I'm not minimalizing that.
Yeah. Yep. So there's that negotiation that it's what our founding fathers wanted, right? They wanted people to represent their backyard. And I agree. State of Oklahoma should not be subsidizing New York and California because they have high property taxes and poor leadership in their state. However, that's where we're at. Used to, SALT was, you could deduct all your property tax and you get a full deduction on it. We cut that down to $10,000. Your maximum was $10,000 that you couldn't claim more than $10,000 in these communities, which is the average household pays about $7,000 a month or $7,000 a year in property tax. That's across the United States. That obviously in these blue rent states, your property tax is much, much higher. What we're negotiating right now is like, how can we get there? This House bill put in $40,000 as a cap that you can, which is an astronomical amount for states that for people that live in blue states, you're like, what? Or red states, you're like, well, what? You're paying $40,000 in property tax? That's crazy. But in New York, that's actually pretty common because, once again, they have a very poor rent state and they spend way more money than what they should be. So they put it on property owners' backs. What we're negotiating right now is saying, okay, we're going to have to do something. It's at 40,000 on the House. Their number's 40,000, but what if we cap it? What if we just cap it for those that need the benefit the most? That's your teachers, your first responders, your factory workers, your line workers. I mean, lower income individuals. At the same time, the average income for household income for a homeowner in New York is roughly between, depending on where you're at geographically, but it's in between 110,000 and 250,000. So maybe we put a cap in there at 40,000 and we go, and we put it, and if we can put a cap in it and say, you get a full $40,000 deduction up to.
Thank you, Senator Mullin. Got to go. Great. Thank you.